It's my pleasure to introduce another wonderful, strong woman of integrity from the Countess. And I'd like to welcome Sorcha Nilachlin. I probably will pronounce that wrong. I'm sorry. She's the director and sports spokeswoman for the Countess, and she's going to talk about women's spaces and sports.
Hello. Bear with me, I'm nervous because normally I prepare everything I'm going to say, but today I've decided to be a bit more free with everything. As Jana said, my name is Sorcha and I'm the sports spokeswoman for the Countess and later one of the directors. And I head up the sports working group, and our mission is really to protect the integrity of women's sport and to raise the profile of women in Irish sport. So how did I get here? I'm just a mammy. And I have three daughters, two of whom were playing camogie a couple of years ago, and I saw that photo of that man playing LGFA, and I thought, I actually can't allow this to go unheard or unspoken about. So I rang up Laoise, and she welcomed me into the fold, and here I am. I just can't believe that we have allowed these kinds of things to happen, because contrary to popular belief, rights are a pie. Women and girls are impacted when men can say that they belong in that category too. So their impacts in fairness, safety, opportunity, privacy and dignity, and exclusion, because girls and women are quiet. We don't want to rock the boat. We just want to have fun with our friends. We want to play football. We want to play basketball. We want to go swimming. We want to join Scouts. We just want to be with our friends, and we don't want to have to stand up and say, actually, that's actually a boy. So they leave. And this is overwhelmingly what happens, is women and girls will exclude themselves or will be excluded for speaking up and saying no. So what's the policy landscape like? And one of the things we do in the Countess Sports Working Group is we look at policy internationally. We keep an eye on what's happening all over the world and in Ireland. And things are changing internationally. You know, a lot of sports federations are coming under increasing pressure. Athletics has led the way, and they now have female only from birth, plus a sex screening, which I'll talk about later. Aquatics is female only, rugby female only. Cycling have a male puberty, so the block is whether you've been through male puberty. I'll talk about that again. Rowing is female only. But unfortunately, there are many sports that do allow males in some capacity, and it's never okay. It's never allowed, whether it's chess or whether it's rugby. It's just not okay. What's happening in Ireland changes much slower. We eagerly awaited Sport Ireland guidance last year, and it proved to be lukewarm. They really, despite saying that the overwhelming majority of people involved in coaching and taking part in sport did not want males to be included in female sport, they did offer that as one of their three choices. Full self-ID into women's category with entry requirements, which basically means men can enter the category, or sex-based categories, sex at birth. All of these options appear to be legal. Irish Rugby were the first to implement a female-only policy, and they have yet to be challenged legally. The LGFA have an egregious policy which allows boys over 12 to self-ID into the women's sport. And others are somewhere in the middle. Our friends at Transgender Equality Network Ireland have produced a really helpful tracker if you go on their website, but maybe go incognito and don't give them the clicks, but you can have a look. However, they appear to have forgotten that females who identify as transgender are actually trans people, because at the top row it says, can trans people compete? And then underneath at least three of the sports it says, no, comma, only trans men. It's a men's rights movement. It's a movement to allow men into women and girls spaces. Females are incidental, whether they identify as trans or not. So this talk is really about, So I won't go through the law because Laoise's already mentioned that. But just to say briefly, in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland, it is legal to have female-only sport and we think spaces, although that's yet to be challenged. So what am I going to talk to you today? Well, I want to give you some tools, because it's all very well confirming what we already know, but actually what you need to be doing is advocating for women and girls. So what do we know? Well, we know that there are 3 realms or areas where there are differences that affect sporting performance: physical, neurological and social. And the activists love to focus on the social. So women's sport is underfunded. That means men can go into women's sport. Women and girls aren't socialised to play sport, so let's let boys in, etc., etc. But actually the social impacts are much lower than the physical and neurological differences that drive sporting performances. So what I want to do is just give you answers to common talking points. And one of the first ones that come up is, it's all the same before puberty. Puberty blockers will make it even. And I know an exceptional girl, or I was an exceptional girl. I used to run rings around the boys at school, therefore let men into women's sport. This is a slide from a really brilliant presentation that you can see on YouTube by Dr. Greg Brown. And it shows the medal count, boys versus girls, 2023 Nebraska Junior Olympics. And under age 8, if they were mixed, the boys would have won every single medal. You can see that the girls begin to close their gap around about the age of 9 to 10. And they won, a couple of exceptional girls won a couple of medals. And that would continue until those girls were about 12, and then you would see an absolute acceleration. So these are like for like. These are the top girls and the top boys. And that's the difference. So one exceptional girl might be able to get into the top. But most girls are not that girl. Most girls are average, or they have to try really hard. There should be no gender categories anyone. This is a brilliant one for anyone who likes to completely deconstruct the world, and this is very much based on queer theory, this particular one. Why do we have the female category? Why are men's sports different from women's sport? And really it's because there are differences. And here you can see, even in Sport Ireland, they had to admit, at every level of competition and at all ages, on average, males outperform females. So it's very clear that the reason for gender categories are to allow women and girls compete on a level playing field. That we must preserve the category in order to allow those excellent women to excel in their own sport. If they're losing medals at the age of 8, they won't be there at the age of 16 competing in athletics. They just won't. This is another brilliant one. The Phelps Gambit, it's popularly known as. So I don't understand competitive advantage. This is what this says. This says Michael Phelps has long arms and has some weird processing of lactic acid, so therefore men should be allowed in women's sport. Which really misunderstands the fundamental purpose of those categories, and also misunderstands how somebody becomes an exceptional athlete. They become an exceptional athlete because they have something minor that gives them an edge, and they work really hard for a really long time in order to get to the top of their sport. And our women and girls also have that edge. However, that will be overcome by what's called a category advantage. These are things that are inbuilt. You're just born with them. They can be controlled for, and it's unfair if you ignore them. So that's things like age. We don't let a sad, small 18-year-old into the 14-year-old category because they might be upset if they don't get allowed in. You know, we have these categories for a reason. We have masters categories. We can go up. So in theory, an open category is fine because a woman who is exceptional might want to push herself and enter an open category, but we can't go down. We can't allow somebody who belongs to a higher category into one for a lower. We don't allow heavyweights into lightweight boxing. This is another very popular one. Sex is a spectrum. Intersex, something, and it's an invasion of privacy to try and tell who these people are. Well, first of all, I would say, when you're talking to anyone who raises this, it's an outdated and offensive term to describe somebody who did not develop normally. Disorders of sexual development also still result in male and female because there's no third gamete. Your body's either designed to produce male gametes, sperm, or female gametes, eggs. And that's basically it. Cheek swabs testing, screening and further testing can be done very discreetly and should be done on anyone who wants to enter elite competition. And in terms of invasion of privacy, elite athletes undergo drug testing randomly. They're chosen, and somebody accompanies them into a booth and watches the urine leave their body. Don't think you get much more invasive than that. And that happens even to 16-year-olds who want to enter elite competitions. So, their age is not a consideration. And also, we just don't need to be lying. These disorders are obvious by the time a child is about 14 or 15. If they're identified as female because of their external genitalia, then they have no periods, they don't grow breasts, their muscles develop along a male pathway. They know by the time they're in these competitions that they're actually male. How could we police this? And this applies to spaces as well. They're basically telling on themselves again that they won't respect our boundaries. They will enter these competitions. So they're forcing people to suggest somewhat invasive manoeuvres to try and keep them out. Well, number one, you could just be honest. That's an option. You could go with what's on somebody's birth cert and not allow falsification. Under the age of 16 in Ireland, everyone's birth cert will be accurate. After that, the only people with an inaccurate birth cert will be those with a gender recognition cert. We're just transphobic, except for, again, they're telling on themselves because they don't consider female athletes who identify as trans to be real people, because there were actually about 8 athletes at the Paris Olympics who identify as trans and non-binary. They were in the women's category and they were all female. And nobody said boo to a goose. It was fine, no problem. They're not doping, no problem. And there's a few more anyway. Sport is just for fun, exercise only. Well, if that's the case, why is it so important that we let men into women's? Could you not just stay in your own category for the fun and exercise then? Why does it matter in pools, darts, fencing, chess? Well, women are different. We menstruate, we go through menopause, we have hormonal cycles, we have different shaped bodies, and we have different strengths in our brains. The category exists, therefore the category should be protected. The category only exists because men are afraid of women beating them, or because some exceptional woman once got to the very top of her category. This one, I have seen this so many times. Such and such a woman beat a man in an event and suddenly there's a women's event. But maybe, just maybe, that indicated that more women and girls would like that event so that they could also participate because they're not quite as exceptional as that one woman who got to the very top. That seems more likely to me than they created a whole category just so no men would get there. Well, actually, maybe it's not. Let's assume most people are reasonable. And it's not that many anyway. How many? As decided by whom? This one is the one that annoys me more than any, because it assumes on the part of the person who says that they are the final arbiter of how many is too many. It assumes they have a top limit of how many men can go into our spaces, how many men can beat us in the face at the Paris boxing, how many men can play against our 15-year-olds on an LGFA pitch. If you say one, that's too many. If you open the category to any, that's too many. This should not be happening. So what can we do? Well, we can know the law. We can know that it's okay. We can challenge everything. And one of the things that really struck out to me this week was the report from the Scouts meeting where they talked about self-ID for leaders. And there was the person who reported to the media said, we were all sitting looking at each other. We were all sitting looking at each other while these people stood at the top podium and said, men will be allowed to supervise our underage daughters. Not one person spoke up. Please, if you are at a meeting, do not look at each other. Look to yourself. People agree with you. Everyone knows who men and women are. They want you to stay silent because then they can say, nobody said anything. Do not stay silent. Don't ask women, or don't use this trope of, well, they just don't compete. There are many, many reasons why women will choose to stay in that competition, even though they know it's wrong and unfair. Even the great Riley Gaines swam her races. But on the flip side, remember, these are children and the boys are being socially transitioned. So don't make a fuss if you see somebody that looks like a boy. It might be a girl with short hair. It might be a very confused boy who's been let down by every single adult around him, who's been socially transitioned by his parents or his teachers or his club. That's not okay. But we, as responsible adults, should challenge that as a higher level. They are still children. If it's a clear man that you know is a man, go for it. Say what you like. But if it's children, please be aware, children need to be protected. So support women in sports every day. Break the spell, use clear sex-based terms. These are boys and girls, men and women. Ask your club. Direct them to sources like us at the Countess. We have a brilliant sports position paper, and please get out and inform people. Let your voices be heard. Let your dissent be recorded. Thank you very much.